Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Bronstetter. Welcome to today's PowHERHour. It's been a while since we've done one of these, or at least since I've done one of these. There was one just on Friday, so I am excited to be back with this community. If you are new to Connect for Women, welcome. I've been part of the community since Q4 of 2020, I think. Jen De Silva, who started the network back in 2019, started it after or during Women's History Month. And studies show that women need not only a diverse group in their network, which includes men and women, but they also really need a network of women only as well. And Jen knew this, so she really took it upon herself in 2019 to make a conscious effort to connect women with women. And that's where the idea sprang from for her to start Connect for Women. So over the past few years, we've had some really great PowHERHour sessions just like this one. We've had some other networking sessions. I heard the network has jumped from like 130 to like 500. So we're really looking to, yeah, I know, Francine, yay. So we're really looking to have more engagement over this next year. So if you are not part of the LinkedIn group, be sure to join that. There's an exclusive Connect for Women LinkedIn group, so you are welcome to share that. Francine or I will be happy to let you in. Any questions on Connect for Women? I'll also, there's another PowHERHour coming up on May 1st called Owning Your Confidence, Mastering Yourself so you can master the world. So be sure to check that out on the Connect for Women LinkedIn page as well for details on how you can register for that free event. Any questions before we get started? All right. So as mentioned, my name is Julie Bronstetter. I am a certified professional coach. We're going to get into my career journey. So I'm not going to get into my experience on how I got here, because that's kind of part of my personal branding story, which this is a story. So if you all went to the session on Friday with Eliza Licht, she is a personal branding expert, and she's got an amazing book out. And while I am a personal branding expert for myself, I am not a personal branding coach. I'm not a marketing coach. This truly is my story. And we're going to talk about the 6 simple tips. I have a great acronym as well that I gleaned along the way. And I think we're all our own expert in our personal branding story. So that's something that I really wanted to make note of before we get into it today. A little bit about the clients that I work with. I tend to work with a lot of creative-minded women who have lost some self-trust. Externally, they might look like they have it all together. They've probably seen a lot of successes personally and professionally, but what's happening inside isn't necessarily matching that external facade. Internally, they might be feeling a little indecisive, unsure of what to do next. They might even use words, and this is their words, not mine, my client's words, not mine, words like, I'm just a hot mess right now. I don't know how to confidently take charge. And so what I do is I help those women reconnect with their inner truth so that they can confidently and authentically lead their lives. And that truly is the root of my personal brand. And we're going to talk about how I got there. I'm going to share my screen. I think everyone can see this now. Francine, can you give me a thumbs up that you can see this? Excellent. Thank you. So before we get into my personal branding journey and the 6 tips that I gleaned along the way, I want to talk a little bit about women in general and personal branding and how it can really hold us back. So fun fact, or not so fun fact, the pandemic has taken a disproportionate toll on women professionals, and it's predicted that employment for women may not return to pre-pandemic levels until 2024. I'm sure this stat does not surprise anyone. There were a lot of women who took a pause, took a step back, took a step to the side, had to make some changes when the pandemic started to be that primary caretaker, whether it was for their own family, whether it was for their parents, whether it was for someone else in their close community. But women tended to be the ones who sacrificed their career during that time. So as we get to what I hope is post-pandemic levels, starting in 2024, what is it that women can really start doing to put themselves out there? They can start self-promoting. They can start building a personal brand. But there's just one tiny little problem. We don't really tend to like to self-promote. And we've got stats to back that up. So why? Women sell themselves short, often downplaying their experiences, crediting others for their own successes. American women in particular are reluctant to talk about their own accomplishments because cultural norms promote modesty. And when we think about modesty, when women self-promote, we're seen as braggers. When men self-promote, they're seen as confident. And men rate their performance 33% higher than equally performing women. So these are just a small set of facts. Can you all relate to some of these? Maybe y'all can give me an emoji, heads up or thumbs up or something. I'm sure we can start relating to these. So true. Yes, totally. And there's a great quote by Marie Forleo, who she and Matthew McConaughey just had an amazing free event yesterday on kind of self-mastery. And she has this great quote: where did we learn that self-promotion is bad? And more importantly, why do we accept that as the truth? Now, I'll be honest, for me, myself, I didn't necessarily, I don't accept this as truth. I don't think that self-promotion is bad. But before I started building my personal brand, the reason I wasn't promoting myself is because I didn't really think I had anything relevant to say. I didn't really think I was qualified enough to put myself out there. The inner judge or the inner critic message that I'm constantly receiving is, Julie, you're not smart enough. So why was I going to put myself out there? And I also believed that I have this small subset, like 5% of my network includes some very intimidating people, for me anyway. And I just feel like if I start putting myself out there, they're just going to be constantly judging me. Like they have a Julie notification that says, oh, Julie's putting something out there. Better start judging internally because no one is giving me data or proof that they're out to get me or out to judge me or make me feel bad. And really the main reason I didn't self-promote or think about building a personal brand is I had no idea who I was. So let's talk about my evolution in how I started to get to know myself, because really my journey is all about self-discovery and self-love. So here's my story. In 2005, I started in the advertising world. I worked for agencies. I worked for some really great campaigns and great brands like Nike, Kraft, Mars, Wrigley. So some really great brands to put on your resume that a young professional in advertising should be really excited about. But there was just one problem for me, is that these brands meant nothing to me. Honestly, the creative work didn't mean anything to me. So I was like, this is a problem. Like, what am I doing with my life? Who am I? So in 2011, I actually hired my first career coach. And in 2011, the coaching industry was nothing like it was today. In fact, I literally Googled who to talk to when you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. And career coach popped up. I'm like, who are these said people? I would love to meet with these people. And so I worked with a coach on and off for 2 years to really understand the value I bring and ultimately the career that I want, and to better understand myself. And I had this aha moment in working with my coach, Wendy Billy. She's amazing. And it was the ROI, or the return on investment of a human being, outweighs the ROI of a marketing campaign, or essentially anything else in life. So when you're working in marketing, you're talking a lot about the return on investment on the campaigns that you're doing. How are we going to measure this? How are we going to know it's worth the money that we're putting into this? And at the end of the day, I didn't care about that. I didn't care when my client called me and said, Julie, oh my gosh, because of the campaign we just did, our sales are up 15%. What I cared about is when my client called me and said, thanks for staying after with me yesterday and helping me sort through this discussion that I have to have with my boss. I now feel really confident going into that. And I really have you to thank. And I was like, all right, clearly I need something more focused on the human beings. Because like I said, my personal brand was all about the return on investment on those human beings. So I got into HR, literally. Human is part of the field. And I spent 5.5 years in HR. It was definitely the right next step for me. But the further I went up that corporate HR ladder, the further away from the humans I actually got. And so at the end of 2019, I made a conscious decision. I was like, okay, HR feels like a great field for me, but I need to do something different within it. Like being the head of HR and like this HR generalist role just isn't working for me. So I started to update my resume. I started to network. I was really making some great headway. And then what happened? Of course, March of 2020, the pandemic happened. And unfortunately, right at the start of the pandemic, we lost my mom very unexpectedly to metastatic breast cancer. It was so rapid that I received information on a Friday that her cancer had returned, and on Tuesday, she was gone. And so I say that because, like it says here, I not only lost my mom, I lost myself and I lost my freaking mind. And why is that? Because my coping mechanism when I lost my mom was work. It had to be, because we couldn't have a funeral for my mom. We couldn't grieve my mom in the way that, we normally could start the grieving process. So I was throwing myself at work. I was working 80, 90-hour work weeks, sitting right here. This behind me is a Murphy bed. Believe me, I slept in it. I slept in this room. I was probably in the same t-shirt 5 days in a row. And I essentially had a nervous breakdown right here. Am I telling you that you have to have a nervous breakdown and go through something like this in order for you to start a personal brand? No, I'm just telling you my story. So for 3 months, I was going at it hard, okay? Like I said, 80, 90-hour work weeks. And finally, I had to take a huge pause. And this huge pause literally came from a friend who sent me a purple heart emoji that meant a lot to me. And it literally was my wake-up call. This little purple heart emoji. She has no idea the impact that message had on this particular Tuesday. And at that point, I was like, seriously, who am I and what am I doing with my life? So in June of 2020, I voluntarily quit a VP level 6-figure job that was very stable because I was working for an iconic Chicago brand. And I quit without a plan. Does this mean you need to quit a 6-figure paying job in order to build a personal brand? No, again, this is my story. So I took 2 months to really start feeling again, to start healing, to start getting to know myself on a deeper level. And once I started to connect with my family and feel like I had at least properly started to accept the fact that I had lost my mom, we were able to have a beautiful memorial service for her in August. I said, okay, I can start the job search again. I'm going to update my resume and I'm going to start putting myself out there. And I was talking with companies that I should want to be excited to work for. And I was networking with people that I should be excited to get introductions to. And so you're hearing the should. There was a lot of needs, there were a lot of shoulds. And I was sucking at the job search. I pride myself on being a really good interviewer, and I was not even getting past the first round, and I didn't care. So the job search felt like a push. And I talk a lot about this push-pull effect with my clients, because a lot of times, I think society tells us, oh, we have to push ourselves. We have to push past our comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. And I do believe the magic happens when we're at the edge of our comfort zone, but I believe it happens when we're pulled to that edge. Brene Brown calls it desired difficulty, because just because we're pulled to something doesn't mean it's easy. I'm pulled to a lot of challenging things. Quitting my job and starting a coaching practice was a huge challenge, but an ultimate pull for me. And when I look back and think about the 15 years that I spent in corporate, essentially my entire career was a push. I was good at it, but it always took me a little bit longer than others. It always drained my energy so much more than other people who were so passionate about what we were doing, about what they were doing. And I couldn't understand why I didn't feel that same way. I was living someone else's dream too. So many people are like, you should be excited about this role. Wow, if I had this opportunity, I would be so excited. So I was getting in my own head thinking that what other people wanted was what I wanted. So a lot of that was a push. So I had to take a step back and think, all right, what is it about HR that I loved? I loved the leadership development. I loved the coaching. I was essentially the internal therapist. My door was revolving. And I'm like, okay, I have this ability to connect with people in a way that really allows them to open up quickly so that we can start getting to a solution and moving into action faster. And so when I made the decision to start a coach certification program, I knew that that was the pull. And believe me, this was taking a bet on myself. I had a $15,000 investment. It was a 9-month program. And I had no idea what I was doing after it, but I felt in my bones for the first time, I have no idea where this is going to take me. And this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So that's really my journey from September of 2020 to today. I know exactly who I am, and let's talk about how I got there. So I call this the simple model, and we're going to go through each one of these steps. So first, set a goal, then increase your social activity, monitor data, purpose. We're going to talk about your purpose, lead yourself forward, and embrace connecting with others. Now, when I did these, yes, I did these in sequential order, but I didn't consciously know that this was what I was doing. This was, as I reflect, this is essentially how I got to where I am today. So, oh, can you all not hear me? I'm seeing Francine.
We can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, Francine, I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Okay, great. Thank you all. And thank you for adding that in the chat. So let's talk about what I had to do in order to get myself started. So when I determined, okay, I'm starting a new career, I've really never self-promoted. I know I need to start building a personal brand. There were a lot of these things that were going on my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. When I thought about personal branding, I'm like, I have an advertising and marketing background. Oh my gosh, I left advertising and marketing because I don't like advertising and marketing. And now I have to build a brand for me. And so I started to think like a marketer. I started to put a plan together. I started to think about, okay, what would my values be? What would a website look like? And I was going through all these things like, okay, what type of research do I have to do? And my plan was essentially holding me back. It was like paralysis by analysis. And the plan was making me really overwhelmed. I'm like, screw this. I don't need a plan. I need action. So this is where this mindset shift was really key for me. And I have a great quote from Sarah Blakely as it relates to action. Start now, start where you are, start with fear, start with pain, start with doubt, start with hand shaking, start with voice trembling, but for the love of God, just fucking start. Sarah Blakely did not use the F-bomb. She was very polite, but I like to add that emphasis because this was essentially how I was thinking. So I should have forewarned you all that there's going to be a few F-bombs in this today. Thank you for the laughter, Rebecca. So this was exactly what I needed. Now you might read this and say, Julie, this sounds like a push. Start with fear, start with pain, start with doubt, start with hand shaking, start with voice trembling. This sounds like a push. And that makes sense that you would think that. And I work with my clients and I ask them, is what you're feeling right now a pull disguised as a push? Or I'm sorry, is this a pull disguised as fear? Or is this a push and the fear is valid? And so if you're sitting there saying, I don't know, Julie, the fear is valid. Well, you showed up here today and it seems like personal branding is top of mind for you. So I would consider you thinking, is it really a pull? And how can we start addressing the fears that you're feeling right now? So let's get into each one of these steps. First off is set a goal, any goal. Okay, I'm not talking about long-term, what do I want my personal brand? Like, where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be? Like, what do you want to do right now? What's that first milestone look like? So I love this boat image because I decided to jump in the boat. And when you're in a boat, especially with serene water, just like this, you can turn around and move around and make different decisions at any point in time, but you got to start somewhere. So I got myself in the boat. And when I thought about, okay, where do I want to go right now? I'm like, okay, do I need to build awareness? Do I want to build community? Am I trying to be an influencer? Am I trying to be a subject matter expert? Like, what is it that I want right now? And at that point in time, I'm like, I just need to know that people know that I exist, that I am alive. It didn't even matter that I was rebranding myself as a coach. I was really not self-promoting. And when I was self-promoting, I was doing it on behalf of an organization. I was taking on the identity of the company or the organizations that I was working for. It had nothing to do with me and everything to do about my position within that organization. So for me, setting a goal was build awareness. And step one of that was let people know I'm alive. And if you're like, Julie, I have no idea what, like, no, when you tell me to set a goal, I have no idea. Okay, fine. Scrap this step and just fucking start anyway. You don't know where you want to go? Fine. Just start. And here's how you can start. You can increase your social activity, or otherwise known as creating content. This was key for me. So when you think about creating content, pick a platform. When I started thinking about, okay, I have to start putting myself out there. Oh God, I gotta think about how I do this on LinkedIn. I gotta think about my strategy for Facebook and Instagram. And do I have to learn TikTok? And like, is Snapchat even a thing anymore? And as I started to get paralysis by analysis, like the planning side started to really get to me. I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna pick one. LinkedIn, done. Not even worrying about the other ones. So I can move into action on LinkedIn. Update a bio headline. So a lot of LinkedIn experts, and that is not me, will say, you know, your LinkedIn profile is everything. You want to really make sure that that about me section is magic and really paints a very clear picture. And I do agree. But at this point in time, before I had built a personal brand, I'm sitting there with a blank about me section. I'm like, well, I don't know who the frick I am. I'm figuring that out right now. So I'm not going to worry about making that beautiful. I'm just going to stick to the headlines. What are 3 facts that I want people to know about me? Well, I want them to know that I'm rebranding myself as a coach. And I also want them to know that I'm a speaker. So I'm going to just lump that together. I'm a coach and speaker. I'm just going to stamp in that. I also wanted people to know that I was a trusted and compassionate partner. And that was words that were pulled from 360s or from other people in my network. That was feedback that I had gotten back. So I'm like, all right, if this is how others view me, I want other people to know that. And I also wanted people to know that I'm consciously child-free. Why? Because I love how working moms own that label. I love that they put a stamp on it proudly and say, I'm a working mom, I'm a mom warrior, I'm a mom of 3, mom to Billy, whatever the case may be. And I wanted to own that label for myself as well, that I'm consciously child-free. So once I did that, I was like, okay, I need to test some content. So short form, long form, video, posting quotes, stealing content from other people through the form of like resharing, and then like adding my own spoof on it. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start as it relates to content. If you go on LinkedIn, if that is going to be your platform, on On the right column of LinkedIn, it says trending topics. That can be a great place to start. Great place to start can just be Googling like things to do to introduce yourself, and like answer some questions as like introductory. ChatGPT, I'm sure, has some great suggestions as well for content. So the key was testing a variety of content and creating consistency and accountability. So I actually joined a LinkedIn posting group, 2 of them, where I was posting on Tuesdays with a group, and then I was part of a paid group where we were posting every other week, 4 times a week. And that really helped from the accountability side. And I knew I wanted to give myself at least a 90-day window to commit to putting content out there on a regular basis. So I actually put together a content calendar. Don't freak out. You do not need to put a content calendar together. This helped me create consistency and accountability. And the way I put my content calendar together was really by themes. So I knew I wanted to post 4 times a week, Tuesday through Friday. So on Tuesdays, I always had a video. I was doing a weekly video series, so I was posting a 3 to 5 minute video. On Wednesdays, I was doing a long form or a blog post. On Thursdays, I was doing a question of the week where I literally was just Googling questions to ask yourself for self-discovery. And I would pick one and essentially journal, and I would share my journal entry and ask others, how would you answer this question? And then on Fridays, I would do a feature Friday where I was featuring someone else in my network, kind of paying it forward. So that was a great way. I didn't necessarily have content in advance, but it was a great way for me to know, okay, today I'm doing this. So it helped me get very organized. That might not be how you need to get organized, but if anything, pick like, I'm going to post twice a week, and maybe you want to pick the days. So it's like twice a week on Facebook, and I'm going to do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's enough. And if you're like, oh my God, Julie, I have no idea of the content that I'm going to create, you better believe you know what's coming up next. I don't care, just fucking start. Start with your favorite quote. Start with looking at your favorite author and pulling quotes from them. If you're looking at other people's content and you're like, God, I wish I was talking about that content, you can. And you can use their content as a springboard. It doesn't matter where you start today. That 5% of people that might be intimidating to you in your network, like I have, is not waiting for you to put stuff out there. They're not waiting to judge you. In fact, no one is waiting for you to put content out there. Only you can start. So start. All right. Next up, now that you're starting to put content out there and you've created consistency and accountability, we want to start collecting and monitoring that data. Now, this first step is one that I did not do, but I would highly encourage you to do if you're in the process of starting to build this personal brand or thinking about the idea. Look at what your story is saying right now. Google yourself. And like I said, this should happen before you start creating content. This wasn't something that I did. It would have been very impactful if I had the before and after for you all. But now that I'm thinking about it, it would have been great for me to Google myself. Maybe there's a story that's already being told that you can start putting together. Or maybe it's completely disjointed and you're like, wow, okay, this is my story, not what I want it to be. Next up, as you start putting out content, look at the comments. Ask yourself, what are other people saying about me? Ask your close network, ask your friends, let them know, hey, I'm starting to put content out there. I would love to get your feedback. And as they start giving you that feedback, you can ask yourself, is this the perception I want others to have? This was key for me. Others were essentially telling me what my personal brand was. They were saying, gosh, Julie, you're really owning your truth. You're making me want to own my stories. Remember when I said the women that I work with, I'm all about reconnecting them with their inner truth because they said I was owning my truth. They're saying, wow, Julie, you're really confidently taking charge of your life. It's making me want to confidently take charge of mine. Your energy is infectious. It's your superpower. So all of these golden nuggets that were coming to me, I'm like, this is what you all are getting from the content I'm putting out there? Great. You're doing the work for me. Look at who's engaging with the content. If you don't know who you want to be engaging with, this might be a way to know who's actually engaging with it. Maybe this is the group you want to be talking with more often. Maybe it's not. Maybe as you start looking at the people who are commenting or liking your comments, you're like, not the people I was actually anticipating engaging with. Well, then you can get curious and ask yourself, maybe this is the wrong platform. Maybe it's the wrong message. What else could it be? Coming from a place of discernment, not judgment. Again, we are collecting and monitoring data. We are looking at this like a scientist. What content creates the most engagement? Look at the likes, look at the comments. Also, what do you like to talk about? Once you start getting in that groove, identify what content starts energizing you. What do you get excited to post about? How is that landing with people? What kind of feedback are you getting when you make those posts? And then look at what other patterns you're noticing. And after you give yourself a window, so mine was 90 days, Google yourself again to see, is the story starting to change? Now, this would be a much more impactful slide if I had a before and after. But if you were to Google me, this is what you see. And I will tell you, 2.5 years ago, you 100% would not have seen any of this. It would have been a disjointed story. But now you see, I'm not just a coach and speaker, I'm an energizing coach and speaker because people said they really talk about my energy. I help female leaders confidently take charge of their personal and professional lives. It was a lot of females who were commenting on my posts. They were the ones I was engaging with. So I'm owning that I work primarily with females. Does that mean I don't work with men? No, I work with a lot of men, but I work primarily with females. I'm a coach with infectious energy. It's my superpower. I help women confidently own their truth. So you're starting to see how I'm starting to use other people's words, the way they're describing me. I'm starting now to own that in my content and the way I describe myself as well. Next, purpose, purpose, purpose. Essentially, this step is my personal brand, and I believe could be your personal brand as well. So when I think about a purpose statement, or maybe you call it a commitment statement, a why statement, Simon Sinek wrote a great book called Start With Why. He's got a great TED Talk too, Start With Why. He talks a lot about, we know what we do and how we do it, but we don't always know why we do what we do. And if we don't know why we do what we do, well, then we can't be intentional with how we're showing up. And believe it or not, everything we do creates an impact. So the more intentional we can be with how we're showing up, the more we're creating the impact that we want to be creating. So where does that start? With gaining awareness on why we're doing the things that we're doing. So I call my purpose statement like my inner compass statement, or I think about it as an inner compass because it reconnects me to my inner truth. It reconnects me to my values. And when I'm connected to that, my compass then knows how to direct me in the way that is authentically me. It's not someone else's compass. So when we think about a purpose statement, it should not be an aspirational statement because then you're trying to connect with someone else's compass. That's kind of a fake it till you make it type of mindset. And if you believe that you have to fake it till you make it, then you yourself do not believe that you can reach your goals. I don't want you to connect to someone else's compass. I want you to connect with who you are so that you can confidently and authentically lead yourself forward. So my purpose statement is I am committed to owning my truth and trusting the process so that others feel comfortable and confident doing the same. Aha, seeing these words, right? Words that came from content that I put out there and how others were perceiving me. And as they were saying this, these words were resonating with me. I am a vulnerable person. I do wear my heart on my sleeve. I do find value in sharing my stories in hopes that others can relate, or maybe they don't feel alone in the situation that they're going through. And let me tell you, this purpose statement helps me in all aspects of my life. It helped me in putting this presentation together. I got asked to do a personal branding session for an International Women's Day event last month. And when I was talking to the woman in January, she's like, yeah, personal branding, it's a real hot topic. How do you feel about giving a session on that? I'm like, no, I'm not a personal branding expert. I'm not a personal branding coach. I'm not a LinkedIn expert. Yes, I have a marketing and advertising background, but I left the industry because I don't like it. I'm not a marketing coach. Like, no. And again, remember, my inner critic voice in my head is you're not smart enough, you're not qualified enough. So all of those things were like, no, 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 no. And I, of course, said, thank you so much for the opportunity, but no, thank you. So hung up. And the next morning, there was just something going on in my belly. It's feeling this, I don't know, twinge. And I'm like, all right, apparently I need to start thinking about this self-branding thing again, because it's on my mind and it's causing a physical reaction. And so when I thought about my commitment statement, I'm committed to owning my truth and trusting the process. I'm like, you know what, Julie, you do have a personal brand. And when I started to actually map out how I got there, I'm like, this is a story, this is a journey. I'm going to trust that whoever needs to hear this message hears it. And I'm going to trust that if people come and they don't need to hear this message, that's okay too. All I want, if one person, I've given this presentation, I think 3 times over the last 2 months, if one person does something with the information, then I know that this was all worth it. Because I want others to know that their stories matter too. I want them to know that whatever life journey they have had means something and can help others as well. This is my personal brand. So once I had this data and I was able to really think about this purpose statement of owning my truth, now I'm connected to my inner compass and I can start leading myself forward. And honestly, if you're at a fork in the road, whichever path you take is the right one. You can always go a different way. So now is your opportunity. Okay, I know I'm connected to this inner compass. Do I want to make some revisions now? Is there something to my content that I want to change? Maybe now I'm at a point where I can start updating my bio. This was when I felt comfortable to start writing an about me section because I actually was articulating and defining who I was. And this is also an opportunity. Maybe you want to start utilizing other platforms as well. I started to dabble into Facebook and Instagram. And to be honest, it was just too much for me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick to LinkedIn. And so I even did a few TikToks and I'm like, no, not for me. But this would be your opportunity now that you've gotten a groove, now that you've gotten a little bit more intel on who you are, you can start spreading the love in other platforms. And speaking of spreading the love, the last step is embracing and enjoying connecting with others because your content has created a story. Share it. Once my story was created, I felt so much more confident going into networking conversations and whether or not, the conversation went anywhere, I knew that I was showing up as my authentic self. And when I'm connected to that inner compass, I'm not only my authentic self, I am confident because it's me. I'm showing up as me. So we just went through a lot. Let's review the simple steps. So first off, set a goal. Any goal doesn't have to be long-term. What do you want to do right now? Is it awareness? Is it building community? Are you looking to be a subject matter expert and influencer? Think about it. Maybe it's like me. You just want people to know you're alive. Next, increase your social activity. Start creating content. Pick a platform. Test out a variety of things. It doesn't have to be profound. Just start putting something out there. And as you're putting it out there, start monitoring that data. What are people saying? Have other people do the work of building your personal brand. And if you're getting information back that you're like, ooh, this is not who I want to be, well, then you can start course correcting. Next, purpose. Define a purpose statement so you understand why you do what you do, so that you can be more intentional with how you're moving forward and you can connect to that inner compass. And then once you are connected, you can start leading yourself forward the only authentic way you know how. I don't know how to lead you forward, only you do. And finally, embrace and enjoy connecting with others. So I know a lot's been going on in the chat. I haven't been reading. I have that on my profile and I'm loving it. Greatly appreciate your insights. Great. How do you keep it interesting, Rebecca? That's an interesting question. For me, I will say I'm not as active on LinkedIn as I was, because you don't necessarily, as you build that personal brand, have to stay as active once you feel comfortable with who you are, at least for me. But as I was doing it, I took a lot of walks and really just quieted my mind to see what popped up. So I would say, ask yourself before you go to bed, I want to know what I should be thinking about. Maybe ideas will come, maybe things will come in the shower. It was when I quieted my mind that I was able to really access that intuition to tell me exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And sometimes I wouldn't have these brilliant ideas and I would just Google, what are some hot topics that are being talked about right now? Thrive is a great resource as well. They tend to, at least for me, I'll get an email from them on Tuesdays that's like, we're collecting information from users about X, Y, and Z. Like, what do you do to reduce stress? And I'm like, perfect. That's a topic for me to talk about as well. So those were some ways that I helped keep it interesting. So based on what we're talking about here today, what's one thing you can do right now? What are you taking away, and what's one thing you could do right now? You can take yourself off of mute or add it in the chat. What's one thing you want to do right now to start getting yourself into action? Start thinking of ideas to share. Yes, thank you, girl. Continue to post on LinkedIn. That's great, Emma. Jump back on LinkedIn. Awesome, Tamara. Change my boring LinkedIn profile. Rebecca, great place to start is that line. If the thought of overhauling your complete, LinkedIn profile, start small, consistent changes make a huge difference. I think it's in James Clear's Atomic Habits on how could you make it 1% better. And if you think about how you can make it 1% better on a consistent basis, think about how that compounds over time. So I wish that this last quote was from a brilliant woman, but dang, P.T. Barnum really said it well. Without promotion, and let's call it self-promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. So of course, I'm going to tell you to just fucking start. And how can you fucking start right now? I do have a special offer going on for the Connect for Women community. So it is a 3-pack. It's a month-long package that is part of my coaching program. Phase 1, I call, is gaining clarity. And there's a specific part to this called the who, what, how, and why. So it's the who, what, how, and why portion of my coaching program. So it starts with the Energy Leadership Index assessment. I love this assessment. It's an attitudinal based assessment to gain clarity on how you currently perceive the world and approach your life. And what I love about this is our attitudes can change. So this isn't a Myers-Briggs or, like a DISC that talks about your communication style. Those results don't tend to change a lot throughout the course of your adult life, but your attitude absolutely can and does. So we'll get a snapshot on how you're currently seeing the world. So it's gaining that awareness so that we can be more intentional with how we are showing. And then we'll do a values assessment to start gaining clarity on who you are and what you value most. And then finally, we'll really start getting to the meat of that purpose statement. So gaining clarity on why you do what you do and how that can help guide you forward. And this 3-pack offer is for $597. This is over a 50% discount for Connect for Women community. So if you are interested in this, you are welcome to reach out to me. I will put my contact information in the chat. Hopefully I spelled that right. Julie at jbronstedtercoaching.com. Yes, and you're welcome to take a screen grab of this slide as well. So that is what I have for you all. What comments or questions do you have? I've made you all speechless, huh?
Can I just pitch in?
Yes, of course, Rebecca, please.
So how long would you say do you spend, I'm sorry if you've said it already, on the marketing aspect of it? So the social network content management side of it.
Great question, Rebecca. When I first started and I gave myself that 90 days, I would say I was spending approximately 2 hours a day on my LinkedIn. That's me. That is not to say that that's the right way to go about it, but I really saw that as a huge portion of my job because I was putting myself out there for the first time.
That's where you're getting your coachees from.
That was where I started. Yes, that building that awareness was absolutely a foundation for my client base. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just being a bit trepidatious because I see people often posting and I'm often reading them thinking, oh, this is amazing. I'm just thinking, wow, they must be putting so much work into this. I'm sure they are. I've just started to follow you, so I'll be able to see yours as well very soon.
Excellent. Yeah, and I would say now I'm not spending nearly that amount of time because I feel like I've developed a following. I feel like I've developed my personal brand. So it doesn't necessarily have to come out on LinkedIn. It comes out in all aspects now of when I'm networking with people, when I'm meeting with potential clients as well. So it really comes out in all aspects of my practice. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you all for coming to this PowHER Hour. Like I said, our next session is on May 1st at 1 p.m. Central Time, owning your confidence, master yourself so you can master your world. I hope to see you all there. John, I think we can stop the recording and we'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.